Yeah, so this mimer is on audio.
Like Sichas put like a picture
And-
of Shmuel, like zooming in, zooming out.
Now, I mentioned in the beginning of the year, where the Rebbe spoke about the Mamor of this year, so the Rebbe actually specifically spoke about this mimer. And that Sicha, because this, right after this mimer, the Rebbe said, a bit after, the Fabringen, the Rebbe said the Hadron on the Rambam. The Rambam, the big Hadron, was said by this Fabringen. And the Shabbos after, the Rebbe was sort of complaining, or was giving over his frustration with the fact that the Olam, what's the Olam listening to? The Yehudi Sichas, the political Sichas. But the Maimer and the Hadrin, the Olam didn't ask any questions on. Or the Rebbe specifically singled out this. The Rebbe wasn't about this. The house was about Chassidus, but the Rebbe spoke about this Maimer, the Fabringen. So the Rebbe spoke about this Maimer that he didn't see his askus in this Maimer and in the Hadrin. So 50 years later, Memeg Geben Nachas, yeah. This Maimer. Okay. So
Only when you're being Mekai of someone, then you learn.
Yeah, Kapashat, yeah. So who's being Mekai of who over here?
No, I'm saying the Hadrin.
Yeah.
When you have a Perisha, you want to be Mekai, then you learn the.
You learn the Hadrin.
First, yeah.
Okay, so now you have the Maimer. So the Hadrin you've done before. Most people probably saw the Maimer.
I don't think I was Mekai of any.
Not you, whatever, the Indian, yeah. But now you can actually do the Maimer. So the Maimer is part of the Shalom Maimer. So by the Rebbe. So there's certain Mamor, and the Rebbe said Ribi Pa'am, right? What's the Maimer the Rebbe said the most? What's the Dibur Matzkel the Rebbe said the most? The Pashtus off the bat. Basi Lagani. How many Basi Laganis are there?
Wow.
So if I'm not mistaken, there's Gan Basi Laganis. There's 53 Basi Laganis.
Not including Shabbos Beganim.
Not including Shabbos Beganim, and this year in Involve you have a Betzmi Mazeh, Dibur Matzkel Basi Lagani. Now, on the flip side, you also have Basi Laganis that are sort of disconnected. You have from other times, etc. But you have 53 Basi Laganis. I believe the second, the one that comes in second, is Padav Shalom. There's close to 50, there's over 40 Padav Shalom, close to 50 Padav Shalom. It doesn't count. Saying he doesn't have a Moyadim Yutas Kislev?
He's still putting on the Mamar.
And testing Yud Kislev Mamar there as well, right? So there's some test Yud Kislev Padav Shaloms. There's a few. There's the Yubis Kamas Padav Shalom. There was once the Rebbe's Kapitel Nunhei, so the Rebbe entered Padav Shalom around that time. Whatever. There's different. I think that was maybe it was then the Rebbe said Padav Shalom. Shabbos before it was Parshat Mitzvah. I think Shabbos Agadol. The Shabbos before the Rebbe's birthday. So it was the Kapitel, so in the Yuds, Kapitel Nunhei, it's the Rebbe said the Padav Shalom. Even Klali Padav Shalom is Yud Kislev Maimer, and a Yud, a Test Kislev Maimer. There's a really Padav Shalom. It's, Lizaz Mechave. After Padav Shalom, L'ch'eira, what would come in third place? What do you think? There's a lot. Shoshana is only when it's Chayis B'Shabbos. You have Tiku. One of the Mamorim is the lot is V'yemer L'Yainason, which is also some Maimer Chavim on the Rebbe. A lot of the Mamorim are very similar. V'yemer L'Yainason is a Maimer that Rebbe would say on a Shabbos Erev Rish Chodesh, a Machar Chodesh. It's a Machar Chodesh. V'yemer L'Yainason Machar Chodesh. So it could be Machar Chodesh. It could be Cheshvan. It could be Kislev. It could be different months. The Machar Chodesh was one of these Mamorim that Rebbe started koching them. If Kata Kipakum Yishavecha. But anyway, Padav Shalom is up there. It's brought a lot. And like the other Rebbeim didn't have that many Padav Shaloms. There's a few classic Padav Shaloms, and by the Rebbe, Padav Shalom is the Maimer. Right? Almost no year goes by without at least one Padav Shalom, if not two. What's the toichin of the Padav Shaloms? Right, so the Rebbe's Padav Shaloms usually are miyusid on. They're miyusid on the previous Padav Shaloms. What are the previous Padav Shaloms before the Rebbe? So the classic Padav Shalom, which I believe the Rebbe said a few times to learn, Teskes of Yud Kislev, is the middle of the Rebbe's Padav Shalom. Right? The middle of the Padav Shalom. Then there's like two sets. There's Padav Shalom Ranat of the Rebbe Nishmas Eden. On that is miyusid Padav Shalom Tafshin Dalid, the Hamshich. And that's like, and many of the Rebbe's Padav Shalom are using on that kav Padav Shalom. Then there's Padav Shalom in Hemshech Ayin Beis of Ha'eter Tafish Ayin Hey, which on that Padav Shalom is miyusid Padav Shalom Chavav, Mulukad Vav, and other Shaloms. They're Miyosed on that Pad V'Shalom. They're all Miyosed on the Mittel Rebbe's. They all go back to the Mittel Rebbe's Pad V'Shalom, which ultimately is Miyosed on, maybe the original Makir is Igeres HaKodesh Siman Dalid. Igeres HaKodesh Siman Dalid is like one of the first Makirs that Chassidus explain what the of Geula is, the concept of Geula Pratis, that Geula is not just the collective Geula when Mashiach comes, but every person goes through a inner Geula. That Sprach that we have, which is basic of Chassidus, is Igeres HaKodesh Siman Dalid, the Geula Pratis that happens during Tefillah. That would be the Shoirish of the Pad V'Shalom. Now, okay, so Pad V'Shalom. And what's in general the idea of Pad V'Shalom? Right, we know the Mamar Pad V'Shalom. There's Pediya B'derech Milchama, Pediya B'derech Shalom, and there's different ways of doing our avodah. So, and this also changes from like the Mittel Rebbe to the Rebbe's House Mamarim, the Rebbe's Mamarim. In general, you have a few different mahalchim when a person does their avodah. When we do our avodah b'achila v'shtiya, higher level, and then you're mevar your nefesh b'hamis. There's higher you're mevar nefesh b'hamis during davening, and then there's during limit Torah in Torah gufa nigler Torah pnimis Torah. So now, this concept will based off which maimer we're going to talk about. There's pediya b'derech milchama and pediya b'derech shalom. Avodah b'derech milchama, avodah b'derech shalom. What's milchama? What's shalom? So this sort of depends what the two layers are. Sometimes achila, that's nama from charba leichel. So the concept of cherev is connected to achila, and then davening is already gilui nefesh alikis. But then davening is already called sloisa shas krava, so that's a krav, the time of davening. And Torah is menucha. You go into Torah gufa, nigla is already some level of krav, and chassidus is not. Then you have a certain moment that goes nachti for in chassidus gufa. There's the seichel of chassidus, and there's the re'iyah, the likus of chassidus, which they connects to the two kufas of lasid lava, etc. So there's many layers here. Fine, so that's B'chal Chassidus. What's the Rebbe's big? In many of the Pad V'Shalom, especially you see this in the Mugge, both in the multi Mugge, there's a relatively high amount of Mugge Pad V'Shaloms, like almost as much as Mugge Basi Lagani. There's a lot of Pad V'Shaloms that are Mugge, but there's a lot more multi Mugge, obviously. I would say you go through the Rebbe's Pad V'Shalom, there's a certain nekuda that you see, can't say in every Maimer, but kemat in all the Mamar. In each Maimer, it's a direct zechais and andere oif. But what's the Rebbe's fundamental yisoid in Pad V'Shalom? The yisoid goes like this. It usually boils down to a question or a statement in regard to the pasuk Pad V'Shalom nafshi mikravli ki b'rabim hayu imad. Pad V'Shalom nafshi mikravli. There's a problem here. There's an oxymoron. On the one hand, we say Pad V'Shalom nafshi, the p'tiyah is b'shalim, right? Not milchama. But then the next word is mikravli. Milchama. Is it p'tiyah b'shalim or is it mikrav? Is it milchama or is it shalom? Right. The whole Chassidus speaks about the difference between. In all the Pad V'Shaloms before speak about the difference between avodah b'derech milchama and b'derech shalom, but here we see it's together. Nachman the Rebbe asks, Pad V'Shalom nashmi mikravli l'chayr it's only shaykh milchama. Right? If there's no milchama, then who needs a p'tiyah? The whole concept is saying you have to be freed. Freed from what? Well, shalom. If you're a son, what are you being freed from? Obviously, you're stuck. You're in captivity. You're in a milchama. You're fighting, and you have to be saved, right? If everything's good, then what do you have to be saved for? No one's looking for a savior if everything's okay. And this leads the Rebbe to Yisoid, which again, as I said, it's in different Amorim, the Rebbe analyzes or expands this Yisoid into many different directions. But the Yisoid of the Vart is that the P'diyah B'Shalom is connected to the Krav. What's the big corns? Let's say the Dugma. You look at the Maimer of the Mittel Rebbe. So there you see some different levels of P'diyah, different levels of Avodah. Who is the one that's shaykh to P'diyah B'Shalom and real Shalom? Right? It says there that there it speaks about different levels in davening. P'diyah B'Shalom is B'chol Meidech. Who is B'chol Meidech? As there he says the Lashon, which the Rebbe is mitzayin to a lot. Rosh Yalfi Yisrael. Right? The Nesiya Yisrael, Rosh Yalfi Yisrael. It's the highest level of Avodah. So you're people that are dealing with Pashta Zach, and people are dealing with the regular struggles, and then people are dealing with much higher Zach. Those people, there's no krav. or let's say in the sprach of the dargis benefesh. What's the level in nefesh of Pad V'Shalom? Which level is that? What is it in all Pad V'Shaloms? Yechida. Yechida. The real Shalom is in Yechida. Because any level other than Yechida, there's two sides. Right? There's always two sides. Nefesh of Nefesh Alikis, there's Nefesh of Nefesh Bahamis. Ruach, Neshama, even Chaya, there's a Chaya of Nefesh Bahamis. Let's say Chaya is a Ratzin. Very strong Ratzin of Nefesh Alikis. Ratzin Ma'amit Hamadas. Nefesh Bahamis also has, Rosh Bakir, as I took, like, most of the guy, as I took Welt, we talked about it last week, yeah? Nefesh Bahamis also has things, he has addictions, he has things that don't make any sense, he does it because that's what he does. There's no seichel, there's no one's body. Yechida, bevor leslo. There's no yechida in general. Sometimes Chassidus also goes around that. There's also some level of yechida. Nefesh Bahamis, mikfir michidasi, as a cloud, there's no yechida in the Nefesh Bahamis. Yechida is that this is my identity, this is who I am, it only exists in Nefesh Alikis. That a yid can design upgrades from Alikos. Fine. So yechida is p'tiyah b'shalom. Now, the problem with that is, on the one hand, true shalom only exists in yechida. Fine. But if it's Yechida, there's no P'diyah. Because there's no V'vod, there's no Mulchama. So Pashtos, if you look in Public Shalom Mittel Rebbe and other places, that's Taka, by those, the Rashi Alpha Yisrael, the Nesiya Yisrael, which by them, the Yechida Shebenefesh is Begalui, so they need a P'diyah B'Shalom, the ultimate P'diyah B'Shalom. But regular people, nicht. What's the Rebbe's Taina? The Rebbe's Taina, and this is Kemat in every Maim, or even many Sichris, the Rebbe speaks of P'diyah B'Shalom, is Pad V'Shalom Mikrav. The avoid of Yechida is shaykh to every single Yid. Mikravli, while you're in your Krav. Your Krav means you're not on the level of Yechida. You're struggling in Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama. Your Nefesh is, what's Nefesh? That's in Avodah. Nefesh is that you're Maisa. Right? Nefesh is your Machshav, your Maisa is Kedeboy. Ruach is that your midas are the way they should be. Neshama is that your moichin is the way it should be. You have people, not only their ideas are and their perspectives aren't all of Kedusha, and their chayas, their emotions, their feelings aren't only in Kedusha. Avavir, they have to, they're scared of Yoni Elam Hazah. They have Taivas Elam Hazah. We're in that, even their nefesh, even their machshav, their ma'isa is not Kedeboy, they're levushin. So no wonder they're struggling with nefesh, and even though they're struggling with nefesh, they could have Gili Yechid. And this is the Rebbe's Kumas. This goes on in every mimer. It's a different vart, a different oifin. There's also the mugadik about the V'Shaloms. Sometimes the vart is that even though right now you're not holding by Yechida, but the pnimius of every avodah, even on the lowest level, is connected to Yechida. Sometimes the vart is that be'etzem you need, that the only way we could do our avodah is because of the Mesiras Nefesh that it has mitam Yechida. You have in the Beis, the Rebbe says you have to start your machshava b'nei yechida, right? There's different ways in order to think about the fact that you have a yechida. Spoinus b'nei yechida, and that itself puts you on the right track. There's many different kavim, many different ways of saying what.
Again, how is that? That doesn't answer the question.
So first of all, I'm saying there's many different ways how the Rebbe frames it, but the point is we do use and we are connected to the yechida at the lowest level, and not only we could, the Rebbe's taina is that's the only way. The only way you're really going to be able to deal with Nefesh Bahamis is you can't stand on equal footing. It's like you say to Muhammad, Alei Vecha. Why are we, right? When you start with Muhammad, you're already Alei Vecha. Why are you Alei Vecha? Because you have Yechida. The Yid has to start as Avodah. The Rebbe says it's when you get Yechida. The Rebbe says it's when you get Yechudi Ilah before Yechud Tata. Tshuva Ilah before Tshuva Tata. All these different things that you'll see the Rebbe says in Amar. It's the same point. Padu B'Shalom Mikravli. You're in a krav, you're in a struggle, but don't be defined by the struggle. You are not the struggle. Who are you? You're Yechida. And now are you living Yechida life? No, someone that lives a Yechida life completely is a Rebbe. A Rebbe is a Yechida. We barely live with our nefesh, right? In a conscious way. But be'etzem we're shaykhs to Yechida. And we can tap into our Yechida in different ways. Now, different Amorim, it's mangish this Nekuda differently. Right, so let's say in our Maimer. So I think it's a very general Nekuda. Once you have that Yesoid, what the Rebbe is looking for in the Pad V'Shaloms, you'll see it in every Pad V'Shalom. How vidrik techaseis and what exactly is the avodah changes according to the maimer. But this is the if I want to call it tzad hashav because I can't say every single maimer, but this is the briach hatichin as a klal in the Rebbe's Pad V'Shaloms, and once you look for it, you see it everywhere. So let's say in our maimer, where do you see it, and what is the Rebbe saying to do in our maimer? Anyone went through the whole maimer?
Yeah.
Okay, so where do you see the vidrik techaseis at the der nekuda? Right, so he speaks about the chaloin. The galus is chaloin. That you live sort of with conflicting emotions and on the one hand you have times that everything is so easy, right? By your basic things are so much easier. Then you walk out and all of a sudden the whole struggle starts. On the one hand, every yid wants to do mitzvahs, so the pnimius, everything's perfect. L'poyol, koifenaisa, you got to whip him because there's a dissonance between the pnimius and the chitzonius. Okay. But where's this leading to? So that's the chitzonius of the chaloin. That maybe you could call the krav. That's the krav that's going on. What's the p'tiyah b'shalom? What's the p'tiyah b'shalom in the krav? Huh? Right. So right. So this leads us to the next. This leads us to the next sugya, which is another nekuda al derech zeh, the sugya of Yosef, which the Rebbe does a very similar trick. Right, a very similar nekuda also. The Rebbe in Yosef Asach, and the Rebbe comes with a massive yesod. Yosef in Chassidic literature, Yosef in Chassidus is very unique from all the characters of the Bible. Right, from all the Tanoim Amiroim and Tzadikim and the obvious and Imois and everyone that we have, Yosef is very, very unique. In many areas, we look at Yosef as mamish, the peak, the epitome. Where do we see that? So first, Lumberade in Avodah, and then we'll go to the scholarship. What's the Avodah? The Avodah is, I believe he says this in the Maimer, we see something very interesting. That Yosef, in the Keta Omnum Kolzeh, Yosef was punished. He was punished. 2 years he sat and rotted in prison. Why? What did he get punished for? For asking the Sarah Mashkin to remember him. Not for his Misalsel B'Sairoi, and not for Lashon Hara on his brothers, and all the things that are brought in Chazal. That's not what he was punished. What was he punished for? For asking the guy. He's sitting in prison in the worst place in Mitzrayim in Eretz Haaretz, and he's asking someone to help him out, which is the most normal thing. And Nachmer. So what does it say? The reason is because he should have had bitachon. Perhaps the silence. When is bitachon a stereotype tadlus? Right, the amount of sifrei machshava and musar shmusim explaining how bitachon and ishtadlus go together. It's like the whole Yiddish guide is like trying to make up how bitachon and ishtadlus work together. Yosef was trying. Like he was davening. He was a great guy. On the other hand, the guy has a friend that he helped him. Was placed for his chalim. He's leaving, asking for a favor. What's the problem? So Chassidus sagt, this rule of bitachon and ishtadlus is good for everybody else, and everybody else includes even Yankov. Right? What happened by Yaakov when he's about to face Esav? It says he prepared with 3 things: tefillah, doiro, and milchama. No, if a yid's only supposed to have bitachon, he should only do tefillah. Doiro and milchama is ishtadlus, and different kinds of ishtadlus. He wasn't punished for it. So he's not punished. The biggest tzaddikim are not punished for it, and he's punished for it because Yosef is in a different league, in a different level. Yosef is on a level, on the basic level. It's important to this. They're shaykh to soiviv, he's shaykh to mamle, he's shaykh to soiviv, shaykh to l'kushel ma'ila me'ateva. His level, the way Yosef should be living in this world is kol kuloi. This tension that we have to have between ishtadlus and bitachon and velt teva and ma'ila me'ateva is by us because we live in teva. But Yosef is Yosef is a whole different way of living, and by Yosef there shouldn't have been that tension and that chibur between ishtadlus. Kol kuli is bitachon. So you see here Yosef is on a different level. Another nekuli is on a different level. It says when the Shvatim came and met Yosef, it says that Yosef like vayakir Yosef es echav vehem lo yikiru. Yosef knew them and they didn't know him because they were bli chasim hazakon, im chasim hazakon. Okay, I know they didn't have AI imagery then, but Chasim HaZakan, you don't recognize? Face recognition. Yeah. Gem stuff, yeah. But what's the... Sorry, they didn't have a beard, really, and that's the Maisa. They didn't know their own brother. They're thinking about him for so many years. Narva then, Chassidus Mevair, he saw his brothers, and the same people they were before. Oh, they were tzaddikim. They looked at him like, okay, we there's a guy here in Ervas Aretz, Mishnah Lamelech. Not Mishnah Lamelech. He's really running the whole country. Even Pari Betzim is listening to him. He's running the economy, running the economy of the entire world, making deals with everybody. You can't. There's no way you could be serving the Eibush there. Right? The Shvatim themselves, how did they deal with the world? They ran away. They were really Yitzhayim. They were shepherds. But they're in the they're out of the city. They're not dealing with the city. They're in the outskirts. The Rebbe is var noch tifer. The be'etzem we could be mavdil between there's the Shvatim, the Avos, and Yosef. So in general, we put them on two sides. Shvatim and the Avos were both Royei Tzoyin, and Yosef was Mori the Choshbana, dealing with the Cheshbonis. But the Dakas Yosef, you could divide it into three. Take, the Avos and the Shvatim were both Royei Tzoyin, but for two different reasons. The Shvatim were Royei Tzoyin as an escape. The Avos were Royei Tzoyin as an expression of their identity. The Hainu, so let's say so we're talking about in Dargis, we'll go to that scholarship of the Shvatim are in Biyah, the Avos are in Etzelis. Of course the Shvatim are in Biyah, so they live in the world and they deal with the world, and they're affected by the world. So because of that, Olam Haza affects them, technology affects them, the big cities affect them. So how do they deal with the city? They run away. I don't deal with the city. They go build the yeshiva in a shtetl, and they run away. Shem Vever, right? They're out there. The Avos, they're not scared of Olam Haza, but they don't deal with Olam Haza. They have no chance with Olam Haza before. They didn't run away from Olam Haza, but they're Bashal Abin Natzilis. You have the guy, he's Natzilis. What's wrong with Natzilis? He's not escaping anything. He doesn't know anything better. He's the nerd, that's what he does. He doesn't know anything else. So the Avos were Yitzhak because they were Natzilis. Comes Yosef. And Chassidus Mevar, there's Nochecher, even though Elo told us Yaakov Yosef was a Hemshech of Yaakov, Betzim there's Moshe Nochecher. Yosef comes and says, I'm taka higher than him, but I'm going to go into, because I'm higher, Mailam Ateva, it's not higher Mailam Ateva that's moved from Teva. A Mailam Ateva, so Teva can affect me. I'm going to go into Elam Hazah and not just walk around there as if there's no Elam Hazah. That could be another option. You walk in the streets, you don't see anything. But you don't see anything. He's in Elam Hazah. He's dealing with Elam Hazah, with all the Meshigas of Elam Hazah and all the and the worst of the worst. And he's running Elam Hazah day-to-day schedule.
And the weather. And
he's running the weather, of course, right? And Lepagav Leinaga. Nishar B'tzidkasa. Nishar B'tzidkasa. This is impossible. Something like this is unrecognizable. So not the obvious, and not the Shvatim, and not anybody else. And sometimes in the Mamarim Moshe was like that. That he was Moshe Lipsik Time Megabe. He was in Atzilus and in Elam Hazah in the same way. It's a very unique tzir. Comes the Rebbe and Tainus. The Rebbe Tainus as b'dereinu yeder yid is Yosef Atzadik. Every yid is Yosef Atzadik. By the Rebbe, every yid is this and every yid is that. But one of maybe the biggest chedushim by the Rebbe is every yid is Yosef Atzadik. So first of all, the Rebbe kochs in the pasuk Noyid Katzoin Yosef that Klal Yisrael is Nikral Shem Yosef. Why is Nikral Shem Yosef? Because Yosef Chilkalam B'mei Harav. He gave us food during the time of hunger, so therefore we're called on his name. The Rebbe learned that Nikral Shem Yosef, every yid, just like every yid is called, is a Moshe Shabakir, but every yid is Yosef. We are Yosef. It's not just the Inyan Ruchni, it's also practical in the Gen our Avodah. And this is why B'direinu, the Rebbe asked for certain Yonim in every Yid's Avodah that in other Deiros didn't exist. Yechidei school were asked to do it. So it was a Verbringen, there was a bris, actually mamish around now, Reish Chodesh Kislev. Reish Chodesh Kislev Tavshin Yud Beis. In the early years, the Rebbe went to 2 or 3 bris. 4? Yeah. So Reish Chodesh Kislev, I think it was Yossi Chitrik's bris. So Yosef Yitzchak.
Where they make it back in the day.
Where were the brisim? You said there was no bris house then. So what was the? No. It's like now the simchas are already back in Albany Manor. So the Rebbe's back. So you say maybe the bris house back in the day was like kind of listen. What goes around comes around. The house looks a bit newer. I'm not sure it's good, Shai. He speaks about the. I think he remembers that, huh?
In your house?
People made in their own house?
I think
Avdafka was in. Oh, no. Look at
Yeah,
this.
we have encyclopedia.
Look at this.
Yeah.
The building of Empire and what? Kingston between Empire and Lefferts. The one that you have to, the one with the light, the one that everyone turns on the right side. So 440. Whatever. Okay, we have real estate sessions. We're good. You're competing with what's his name that writes the articles on the
Valerie?
No, on the history of Crown Heights houses. Smooth Bosowski. Anyway. Very good.
That's how I know you're very excited about it.
So the Rebbe was by the bris, and there was a few inyanim there. Some of the sikhs the Rebbe said a few sikhs, some of them were mugge. So one of the inyanim the Rebbe said that this boy is Nikra al Shem Friedrich Rebbe, right? It's 2 years after Yud Shvat. And the Rebbe got the answer sikh and he get Yosef Yitzchak. Yosef, and what's the avodah of Yosef Shebederenu? It's connected to the original Yosef. And this sikh was mugge together with another sikh from after Pesach, a later year. It's in Lekut Sichas Chela Gimel, Parshas Vayechi. Very Yisayistic sikh, very long sikh, very Geshmak sikh. And then the Kodesh brought in many other places. That's a Yisayistic sikh to this topic. And the Rebbe says that just like Yosef at Tzaddik, Al Derech says Yosef Shebederenu, the Friedrich Rebbe. You see by the Friedrich Rebbe, this Nekud, on one hand, you see him like Yosef, right? That his avodah is not to be mechaber bitochen with hishtadlus, right? Kilo, you have to almost like edge your bets. No, it's bitoch in order to l'mayla min hateva. You see by the Friedrich Rebbe, his whole life was l'mayla min hateva, made no sense. And you see from all the Rebbeim, the Nisvi Kuvim that he had, and yet even Alter Rebbe was in prison. He was in prison. He was in prison more times than Alter Rebbe. Ever since Sveitins, Alter Rebbe, there was maybe a chashash that would be a chi of misa, or Inish misa. But by the Friedrich Rebbe, it wasn't just a chashash. They actually read the famous story that he saw. And Nishkevald Zog, and he saw something was crossed out. The Rebbe said the Friedrich Rebbe couldn't say it, but it means it was crossed out the Teitstraf. So you see that the whole Chaim, other times by Brangans, the Rebbe said that the last 15 years the Friedrich Rebbe's life was the Ma'alim Hatev. Didn't make any sense. The whole fact that he's alive, Mitzad Abrias, he shouldn't be alive. His whole life was the Ma'alim Hatev. So you have that Inyan. Another Inyan is, you see in his Avodah, just like Yosef was Mechaber, on one hand, Munich in Oilam Hazeh, in Yoni Oilam, it's Hacheni, Loi Pagav Loi Naga. See, by the Friedrich Rebbe, on the one hand, he's teaching the deepest Inyanim Chassidus, the deepest Ma'amarim. Right, there's times they had to stop saying Ma'amarim because they had no clue what's going on, but he's teaching the deepest Ma'amarim. It's Hacheni, how much time is he spending on sending guys to open mikvahs and chadarim and tzedakah gasmis and Yonim Achip Pshutim. So you see that Nekud of Yosef. So the Rebbe says, "B'dereinu that we're Zara de Yosef." So Haint Montman von Yeder Einu. This avoid on the one hand, kachin in the tifs in Yonim Chassidus. Every person is learning the deepest Yonim Chassidus. On the other hand, release time, right? That's right. Dealing with the Inyanim Achip Pshutim. Right, on the one hand, dealing with the Inyanim Shal L'mayla Mayla Ninkei. Same time, L'mat Madan Tachlis. That's what the Rebbe says in that sikh. But al derech zeh, you see also one of the big sugyas that the Rebbe developed is the sugya of bitachon. When you learn the sugya of bitachon, emunah bitachon in Chassidus, it really does. It's one of those sugyas. It's one of those sugyas that really the Rebbe sugyas. You don't have that many mamorim that speak about bitachon. The whole sugya bitachon it's a big sugya of Lekut Sichos. And the Rebbe's igris, many igris. But even before you get to Lekut Sichos and the high dargets in bitachon, even igris kodesh. What the Rebbe demands from a pashta yid, sometimes even a fraya yid. He has a shaila, he has a tainin, he's worried about this and that. Bitachon. Bitachon what? It makes no sense. I don't deserve it. I deserve einish. My avodah didn't put me on the level to get this. The doctor said something. The Rebbe mont by Yidden, and times that every Yid is shaykh to this, trachgut, vezangut, bitochin, it makes no sense, there's no rule or anything. At times, the Rebbe pashet mont bitochin, where like there's no teva. There's no teva. Now, at the same time, obviously, we still have to do our avodah b'shtadlus, but even that, and this is brought in many sichos, the way the Rebbe's masbid the Inyan, it's not that we do our avodah in teva, kilu, we try that. Through shtadlus, maybe shtadlus will work, maybe, and if shtadlus doesn't work, then the Eibusher will help. The way the Rebbe's masbid and the sichos of our avodah, it's pashut a chiyuv. Just like the chiyuv to have bitachon, the Eibusher tells us, do an avodah, make a keli. But not that the keli is mitzad atzmai. It's like you go to have a job, get a salary. With pashtus, the job will give you a salary. The Rebbe says no. You're going to do a job because the Eibusher says have a job. How are you going to get money? Because the Eibusher doesn't give you money. You're doing it mitzad a mitzvah. I'm not going to get into the whole arichas here. And the sichos, anyone learns the sichos of bitachon, especially when you have, let's say a sich that brings it out well. Lefiyarech is I'm saying lefiyarech because each sikh has another nekuda that adds a nekuda. But one sikh that's mashal in Indian, sikh balak chelak chaf chelak yutches on bitachon v'direinu. We're there with the geula lay kavel leish that right before the geula. So now it's a whole different level of bitachon. It's very similar to bitachon of Yosef. So we're there with the geula. Right. So now memont b'yadeinu daved of geula. There's a var that brings in the letters that also brings in the sichos. I think from the Baal Shem Tov. That sometimes there's like levels in bitachon, and the Rebbe says there's a avodah bitachon where in the Zog the person shouldn't do any ishtadlus. What do we show by ishtadlus? Not only don't do ishtadlus, don't get a job, or don't speak to a doctor. There shouldn't be ishtadlus. There's no nishgein in mikveh. Shouldn't say tilim. Even that's ishtadlus. Right? It's ishtadlus ruchos, but even that's ishtadlus. What's the ultimate bitachon? Yeah, there's nothing. No worry whatsoever. Total bitachon. Right? Like Chizkiah. Ani yashina mitasi.
We do that very often.
So he's so derish like he doesn't understand. By default. I heard from Shalom Chariton. Shalom Chariton lives right across the street from Sim 70. So in the later years when the Rebbe was in the room throughout the whole week, so the Rebbe would stay there at night. So he had a call by him. He wouldn't go to sleep till the lights in the Rebbe's room went off. I would say that. I can't promise you woke up when the Rebbe woke up, but he would wait till the Rebbe's lights went off. You see the lights go off. So he said during the Kuf of the Gulf War, where Klal Yisrael was in a complete panic, and especially when the news just came in, missiles fell, and they said there's dozens of people that died. And he says those nights, he says from all the few years, the 4 or 5 years I was there, he says that the weeks of the Gulf War, the Rebbe's lights were off all night. The Rebbe slept more than I ever saw. I can't tell you the Rebbe slept. He said, whatever. The Rebbe slept. The lights were off. Again, yeah.
Maybe they want the Shalom to go to sleep.
I thought Akach Omar. He lived there. I didn't live there. Electricity, and Israel needed it for their Iron Dome. It didn't exist. Chadikah in those years was the Nekuda is, he says the way he felt was the Rebbe was practicing as Le'eni Kol Yisrael, Le'eni Shalom Hartanav at least, which and der Gewusst is, nicht kennen einhalten. And Yashnam Mitasi. So, and the Rebbe speaks about this Indian. So what do you have over here? On the one, so it's the same Nekuda here. L'chayre P'tiyah B'Shalom Yechida is for tzaddikim. And then those that are dealing with the krovli, they have to figure out how to work on the level of nefesh. But those of Yosef, Yosef could be living in this world, and and here it's an inyan yoilam. But by us, we live in this world. It's a cholim, and the cholims, he says, davening, you could be on a high. But when you're we're dealing with inyan yoilam, the chayra is a big struggle. Zakmin the Yidden. That even in Yoni Yo'ilam, you can, the P'tiyah B'Shalom, in Megala the Yechida, in Megala the B'chinas Yosef, that in Yoni Yo'ilam, right, in Yoni Yo'ilam, you could live with the Geula, you could live, it's also that the Tachas of Chaloim is the Pisrin of the Chaloim, you could live with the Pisrin of the Chaloim, the Bittul B'Mitzias, and with the Seretzich in different Sichis, how do you have that when the Yid is bottled, that the Shtachavenu L'Alumasi, and many Sichis of a Yeshiv, whoever says this, the Shachven al-Alumasi, when the Yid is Mishtachel al-Alumasi Shal Yosef, through the Bittul to Yosef, so every Yid has the Shaykhis to, so every Yid has the Yosef Shabbasecha. It's like the Bittul to Moshe. So the Yosef, the Nekud of Yosef Shabbasecha, he has the Nekud that even in Welt, in the Chol, in Welt, it's like Delikos, by every Yid, through the Shachmenu Lalumasi, is Megal the Yosef Shebeseichai, you can do that as well. You look, when you look, what the Rebbe spoke about Hey Tevis, the Sikha the Rebbe spoke on Hey Tevis, Mem Zayin, right after the Psak came in. It's Hey Tevis. We have a while. We have Rosh Chodesh Kislev, a lot coming up to Hey Tevis. But you see the Sikha Hey Tevis. That's the Nikud the Rebbe says there. In the Mugil that came out a year later, there was Maver the Nikud more. There's a Sikha Nikud Sikha is based off that Sikha. That was the birth of Hey Tevis is that in Inyoni Olam, in America, in here, you're able to completely live Mitalikus. One because the Rebbe says here, the Chiddush of Friedrich Rebbe is that until the Friedrich Rebbe, until he came here, Lubavitch was always in Yeshivas Krach Kash. Lubavitch was in a shtetl. So one time to time, the Rebbeim would go to the big city, and even later, they lived in the outskirts of it. They didn't live in the big city. Starting from the Friedrich Rebbe on, we started living in the big cities, especially when we came to America, and the Yeshivas are in the big cities, and Yeshivas Krach Kash. But that's the whole Chiddush of the Rebbe, the Chiddush from Friedrich Rebbe, especially the Rebbe, that now Yad Yid is Yosef, you can live in the big city. And what are you doing in the big city?